the meeting, but we got a few minutes. Let's get into chapter 13. And if we could just kind of glance back, it was Paul in verse 1 of chapter 13. Then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns, and on his heads a blasphemous name. Now the beast which I saw like the leopard, his feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. The dragon gave him his power, his throne, and his great authority. Now, I think we come to the conclusion that was the introduction of the Antichrist. So in chapter 13 of Revelation, we have 2 people come on the scene. One is the Antichrist, and one is who? The false prophet, all right? So in digging and looking at this, obviously whenever you study the Word of God, there's so much in the Word. When you get into the Word and you start studying it, for instance, that very first verse, you can spend an hour breaking down those beasts and the heads and things that's going on there. So what we have to understand is that John is giving us this vision. He's giving us a revelation for things that are going to take place. And we are dealing with the Antichrist, which is in the time frame of the Great Tribulation. Now, the cool thing is, verse 14 is what they call an antithesis chapter. And, not antithesis, parenthetical chapter. And that's where, you know what parentheses are, huh? When you're making a statement and you need to add a little thought to that statement, you use your parentheses. So, if we look at chapter 14, verse 1, we've been introduced to the Antichrist, the false prophet, and up to this point, we have seen some very bad apocalyptic events. But chapter 14 is what we call a parenthetical chapter, where Paul is going to remind John. My mind is all over the place right now. I'm trying to do this too quick is what it is.
Slow down, let's speed up.
John is reminding us of the fact that in all of this stuff that has taken place, Jesus is coming back, right? So he's having this vision, and it's really broken down into 3 different areas or 3 parts in chapter 14. Verse 1, he says, Then I looked, and behold, a lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his Father's name written on their foreheads. And I heard a voice from heaven like the voice of many waters, and like the voice of loud thunder, and I heard the sound of harpists playing their harps. They sang as it were a new song before the throne, before the 4 living creatures and the elders. And no one could learn that song except the 144,000 who were redeemed from the earth. These are the ones who were not defiled with women, for they are virgins. These are the ones who follow the Lamb wherever he goes. These were redeemed from among men, being firstfruits to God and to the Lamb. And in their mouth was found no deceit, for they are without fault before the throne of God. Now, to say this fairly quickly, let me just say this. John is seeing Jesus, all right? And why I say it's a parenthetical chapter is because we are talking about apocalyptic events. We are being introduced to the Antichrist, all right? Jesus does not come back as far as the book of Revelation till chapter 19. So what John is doing is he is giving us this parentheses in the middle of all this craziness to say, but I looked and I saw the Lamb. All right? So again, we've said this before. The book of Revelation is a very hard book to swallow. If you just read it, especially for those that don't know Christ, right? If you don't know Jesus and you are alive during the time of the rapture, you are about to experience some very hard times, correct? All right? So the book of Revelation is helping us understand the things that is going to happen at the end of the age, all right? At the end of the world. And John is helping us to understand that even though things are going to be bad, Jesus is coming back, All right. Now, let's kind of go back, and I'm slowing down. I'm getting my bearings back. Let's go back, because the Antichrist, John's reminding us in 14 that Jesus is coming back, but up to that point, and we've just been introduced to the Antichrist, at this point, when the Antichrist comes on the scene, and these are things that you just have to get in there and study and learn. When the Antichrist is on the scene, two things will have taken place. The Antichrist, as we have learned, is going to be a prominent political figure. Now, at this point, when the Antichrist is on the scene, we will have, according to all of the Bible scholars that I've read and all the commentaries, and I tend to agree with this just from looking at what the Scripture says and how the Scripture kind of molds together from the prophets of old, you will have a one world government. All right? You will, and there's talk about that as well. Now, when we watched the videos about 2 or 3 weeks ago, David Guznick, he said this. He said that we are moving towards some of the events that we see take place in Revelation. Well, we are moving towards a one world government. But you cannot just introduce a one world government. You establish something as radical as a one world government by changing the mindset of individuals toward a one world government. If you can think about it, guys. Now, this is not a political speech, but think about it. 30 years ago, was gay and lesbian marriages as accepted as they are now? No. 30 years ago, they were illegal. 30 years ago, I graduated in 1983. I had never, if you had told me when I graduated in 1985 that someone could change their sex, I would have been like, have you lost your mind? How does that happen? You know? But look at where we're at now. Look at the Olympics, where you had males whooping the women, and that's an acceptable thing. Well, it's not acceptable to most people. It's accepted by those that are in charge, that is just trying to change a culture of acceptance. All right? So what they're doing, and I've said this way back, that this whole thing of gay and lesbian, and listen, it is what it is, all right? I'm not going to argue over if someone can be gay and be Christian and all this other. Man, I don't know. That's for God to judge out. But here's what I do know. Here's what I do know. The enemy, the devil, we are, especially in this nation, the devil is trying to kill the womb, all right? So a biological male cannot have a child. He doesn't have a womb. He doesn't have the part, does he, Kim? From a medical standpoint, he doesn't have those parts. But if the enemy can raise up a generation that will argue you down that he can, they are no longer looking at scientific facts. They're no longer looking at biology. They are looking at culture. All right? They are looking at that. So what we see is that for many years now, there is a misogynistic, and I don't know if I'm using that word right, but I'm using it this way, misogynistic attitude that is massaging a culture into complacency and trying to massage them and pull them right away from facts into, just a numbness, if you will. All right. So let me go back. Let me give you a couple of things here of writers, well-respected writers, that has some mindsets on one world government. All right. And also one world economy. So if you have one world government, you're also going to have one world economy. All right. So there is a guy by the name of Alan Bloom. Now, I don't know when these were written, but these were articles, and Alan Bloom was an author. He wrote a book called The Closing of the American Mind. And you can go and look that up. I don't know, I didn't look when he wrote it, but that's the name of the book, The Closing of the American Mind. And this is what he said, because he was a proponent of globalism. All right? Arthur Bloom said this: the essential component in establishing globalism is to eliminate any system of absolutes. In other words, he says there is no absolute truth. Truth is relevant to the group or the culture in which it exists. In other words, I could say truth to me is one thing, and Mr. Harlan could say, well, truth to him is something else, and we're both right. That's not right, all right? But here's the thing. So if you have, and I'm probably not using the word right, I'm just using it the way I want to use it. If I am trying to massage a world into thinking a certain way, I am trying to remove any absolute truth. Hence, a man can get pregnant. That's not true. But there are groups of people that will argue you down that that is true. Why? But, well, he was a woman first. Well, he's still a woman. All right, you get where I'm coming. I'm not trying to be, argumentative of the culture and the world we're at. But truth is truth. All right? God designed us, how? Male and female. That's how he designed us. That's the truth. Now, how the culture, how the world begins to play with that, or how they begin to try to scientifically change things, that doesn't expel the fact that the truth is still the truth. Does 2,000 years ago, if somebody lit a fire, and maybe that was the only light that they had in the darkness, I don't know. If they lit a fire and they stuck their hand in it, did it burn? Why? Because fire is hot and it burns. Does it still burn? Absolutely. So some things don't change just because somebody says they change. All right? So this guy writes this book and says, and let me tell you again, this was a quote out of his book, The Closing of the American Mind, the essential component in establishing globalism, not anything else now, a one world government and a one world economy. The way that you begin to establish that is you eliminate any systems of absolutes. There was a Nobel Prize winning economist by the name of Jan Timberken, and he said in a piece that he wrote, he said, mankind's problems can no longer be solved by national governments. What is needed is a one world government. Now, these were written, I didn't look at the exact date, but they were written back in some time. 1987. All right. In 2013, Hillary Clinton, all right? I'm not bashing on Hillary, but she said this, all right? She said in an address to a large crowd, she said, quote, my dream is a hemispheric common market with open trade and open borders, and I hope to see that sometime in the near future. All right. They have all said. Now, let me, and I have to attach it to it. Now, I'm not, somebody recently sent us a video of a Christian guy. He's well known, and he's saying that eventually the church has to stand up against these idiotic policies of the Democratic Party. Now, I'm not, my daddy was a Democrat. He was a diehard Democrat. And I could throw the word Democrat and Republican off over here. But when I look at the policies, all right, let me just help you with what I'm saying. If you remove a border, then there's no distinction between you and your neighbor, all right? If you and follow with me, guys, and this has nothing to do, this isn't politics. This is just moving to a one world, removing any absolute and having an open economy and an open border. In America, it's a well-known fact that our birth rate is at an alarming rate. We are not birthing children at the numbers we used to birth them. Part of that reason is because the LGBT movement and the transgender movement is increasing along with the abortion rate. All right? So you have a nation that is literally killing its babies in the womb, while in the same time a government that is opening borders. Within 10 years, we'll be a migrant nation because we're not replacing. Our death rate is growing, our birth rate is decreasing, and we are replacing those that are passing with migrants. The writing is on the wall. I don't care how you say it. And when somebody comes up and says, we don't need open borders, they are considered to be evil. All right? Well, they're evil. They're not, they're not for this. The reason I'm saying all of that is because that's what the Antichrist will govern. Are you with me? You say, well, I just don't know how quick we are or how close we are. Look at the world we live in. We have open borders. Our government is wanting open trade. Our government that is wanting to be in control is not wanting any border whatsoever. While at the same time, we have a government, the Democratic National Convention is this week. They are partners with Planned Parenthood. They have a trailer set up in the parking lot at the convention giving free abortions. What does that say? That says, let's kill the babies and let's open the border. It makes no sense. So we are headed toward something catastrophic if things don't change. And Israel, Iran right now is saying that they are about to obliterate Jerusalem, all right? And they are coming together with some of the other nations, Russia and China and different ones. So that's getting crazy. Let me say what Hillary Clinton said again, because some of these other ones may have been in the 80s and some maybe before that. Hillary Clinton was in 2013. My dream is a hemispheric common market with open trade and open borders, and I'd like to see it sometime in the near future. So here's what I wrote down as I was looking at all of this. I just wrote this down. The stage is being set. The stage is being set. Here's the problem. I don't think those that are doing it are deceived to the greatest level, because the majority of those that are proponents for things like this are also proponents for removing God from our institutions. They're the same ones that say, no, we don't want no 10 Commandments in the school. What we want is feminine products in the boys' bathroom. Come on, y'all. It's the truth. We can't, you say, oh, Pastor, you're not supposed to say that kind of stuff. No, it's just the truth. We're quickly going toward a very troubled place. All right? So, but.
Do as I say, not as I do. They're so worried about the church body coming in and indoctrinating the kids.
Yes.
They want the feminine products in the mailroom, and we're supposed to abide by it.
They're indoctrinating our children. And that's why you're seeing trends. I saw one today. I was out, had to go out to Laranja, and a friend of mine I know where he lives out there. Well, I noticed that where he used to live, there's a sign out there that they're fixing to open a Christian school. And we have the school here. You have Kedron Baptist Church, where Mason is going. You have a school that is a Christian school there. That's a new Christian school out in Laranja. And I have read on Facebook probably 3 or 4 teachers last year that were quitting teaching, and they are opening homeschool centers in their homes to get kids out of the public school system. Why? Because the public school system is indoctrinating them. And you can say what you want. Well, all that crazy stuff is in Michigan and Missouri and Pennsylvania and all these. No. A lot of that's right here in our own back door. All right. Well, just when John Bell Edwards was our governor. Now, here's what I say. They run with their party, all right? It is what it is. He was a Democrat. He runs with his party. When it was brought to him up, a bill to not allow men or boys to play in girls' sports, and they passed the bill, he vetoed it, all right? Why would you do that? Why would you say that that is acceptable if you weren't part of a bigger picture? If you weren't part of a bigger movement, all right, why would you say? Because here's why stuff like that is done. To eradicate absolute truth. And to pass an agenda, because here's the thing. The devil is very patient, because we don't know when all this will take place, but we know that he's patient, and we know that he understands generations as well. So he knows that if he can put some people in authority to begin to change the absolutes, that they change the mindset of absolute will eventually be in their place of authority. So it won't be something that they will be trying to change, it'll be something they'll be living. All right? 4 generations from now, you won't have absolute truth. You will have open borders. You will have, the stage will continue to be set with open economy. Now, and we were supposed to say all of this night before we actually got into word, so we'll get into the word part of it next week. But all of this is what I'm getting at, that John is, in verse 13, the Antichrist who's going to be doing this, and the false prophet, because in this time frame, you will have a one world government, a one world economy, but here's something else you're going to have, a one world religion. That's where the mark of the beast comes in, and that's not just in the United States, that's global. All right, you understand that?
I just heard about this the other night. Somebody was talking about the one world religion.
It's starting to be talked about more. Yeah. Because the more that the stage is being set, the more that people are going back. Renee and I we got in bed the other night, and I pulled up Facebook, and I was looking at First Baptist Church of Covington, and last Wednesday night, Waylon Bailey started a teaching on the book of Revelation. Had 800 people show up. Why did he have 800 people show up? Because people are hungry. People are hungry to understand and to get some biblical understanding. Listen, it's one thing for me to get up here and say, LGBTQ is bad. It's another thing for me to spend 30 minutes helping you understand that it's just part of the agenda from the book of Revelation, that the stage is being set, because all it is, transgenderism, all of that, these pictures of, this one blew my mind. This woman who had transitioned to a man, and the man had transitioned to a woman, and he was pregnant. Anyway, it was reversed, and the one was pregnant, and this, that, and the other. And this magazine put it out as if it was normal. All right? It's all part of a misogynistic plan to begin to change the absolute into being a speculative truth according to who's looking at it. 5 generations from now, those that they are successful, they will be the ones in authority, and it will be trouble.
You know what, too, in like California, they don't have to tell the parents if these children want to transgender, but they're mutilating these children.
Yep.
These children don't even
No.
That's the devil after our young people.
Yep.
Even in school systems here, if my girls go to school, teachers can have conversation with my girls and never have to tell me about it.
Yep.
It happens every day in Paintsville Parish. Every day. We actually got a letter that said that, asking us if we wanted, counseling for the girls because that they were gonna start offering it. And after I read it, we didn't even have to sign up for it. They were just gonna do it. And I told my girls, I said, if they pull you in a room, you tell me about it, because I'm going to that school.
So the coolest video I've seen to answer that, it was this. A guy had a 7-year-old little boy, and he had him sitting at a table, and he had $10,000 in cash and a pack of Oreo cookies. And he tells the kid, he says, I've got an option for you. He says, I got $10,000 cash right here. And the kid looks, he goes, okay. He says, got a pack of Oreo cookies. He said, which one do you want? The kid goes, the cookies, the cookies. You know, and this guy was making a point. He said, you cannot give a 7-year-old the option to change their gender. I mean, they don't make, he just picked cookies over $10,000 that would, you know, so it's not about the children. It's about a bigger agenda to change absolute truth is what it's about. All right? So we have to keep that in mind when we continue with the book of Revelation. But here's the beauty of it. Here's the beauty of it, chapter 14. That's why I call it parenthetical. All right? All of this stuff is going on. The world is changing. There's a one world government. There's a one world religion. All of this craziness. But John says, but let me remind you, Jesus does come back. In other words, when we do read this, he comes back. And in this chapter, it's not only him, but it's the 144,000. We'll talk about them again. They come back now. We understand what the seal is. We understand what they've done. And he begins to release angels to begin to proclaim the gospel to the entire world. All right? So Jesus does come back.
When you think about all that's going on, if you're a believer, you should automatically go, time's getting close.
Yep.
And that should not be, doesn't mean we should be like, okay, well, just let it happen. That don't mean you just sit back lackadaisical and you don't say nothing. You're not talking to my kids. You're not influencing them this way or you don't stand up for yourself. But at the same time, you go, you have no clue
Yep.
what you're playing into. You know, like it's part of what's going to happen.
Yep.
I was gonna tell you, I listened to Jim Raquel with, Olive Tree Ministry show. He said, things aren't falling apart, they're
Yes.
falling into place.
They're falling into place.
It's not meant to scare us, it's meant to prepare us.
Yep.
And that because we have this, and it says we're blessed if we read Revelation, it's not because we're gonna be here, we're not. But we have to realize there's an urgency to tell others about the gospel.
Yep.
That's what it's all about.
So I said several weeks back that the fact that churches are declining is not bad. It's getting down to the remnant. And the remnant is going to have control of the church, which is the only institution that handles this and sees to it to help people miss what's going to take place in what that book tells us in the tribulation. Amen? Yeah. That's all you got to figure, all you got to do. And where else but Hollywood, he makes a good point. Where else but Hollywood, they put them on a pedestal. Taylor Swift could say, we now, black is now white, and you would have kids saying black is now white, So anyway, all right, do it quickly. I just looked and didn't realize it was after 7, so.
Way over.
All right. The prayer sheet.
The prayer sheet has changed, if you look at it. We're going to start doing a 4-week thing, like you put the name on it the first week, it'll go to the second week, third week, fourth week, it'll come off. If it needs to go back on, you let us know. Because we had pages and pages, because it just keeps growing, and Miss Rich's been trying to clean it up, and it was difficult, and so she went and visited with her daughter at a church the other day, and they had a 4-week thing. So it's like stays on for 4 weeks, and if it's something we need to continue, if it long-term, we have a section for long-term. So most of the rest of the stuff did not change, that will be the only main change. So if you look at it, you go, what's all that look different? That's why. It's a 4-week thing, so.
She implemented one last thing.
Huh?
Yeah.
Implemented one last thing.
Yeah.
I looked at the calendar today. I'm like,
So you wanna go ahead and start?
snap,
You wanna
she ain't
go-
got but another week. Her last day is next Friday. So she doesn't want any accolades or anything, but y'all, we're going to have something. We're going to do something, and I'll get with the family where they can all come, and we'll have a time of celebration for her. She's did this for a long time. So anyway, she'll get over it. She'll get over it.
She got over us calling her out.
What can she do? Quit? She can handle it.
That was a good comeback.
All right, so let's look at this week. We got Michelle Nikosha. Y'all, some of y'all, Michelle sits right over here, short hair. She lost an aunt this past week. And Joanne Folks, if y'all know Joanne, they literally live across the road here. Got bit by a bunch of hornets. We actually talked about that last week, but she's still dealing with that. And Oscar and Billy Lofton. How many of y'all know Mr. Oscar? Most of you in here. He got in a bad wreck. Miss Billie Jean was in the hospital, but it wasn't from the wreck. She's going through some rehab. Yeah. Okay. They said it was a bad wreck. Yeah. Jesus. All right. Anybody else that we need to add on it?